Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today I'm wearing a flower because I'm recording this on the day that I would have been inaugurating my concerts called Españolería, which I was, you could say, forced to cancel because of the COVID-19 crisis that we're living. But that's okay. I'd rather everyone be safe, and I'm really glad that you're here today. Today I want to talk about the nature of habits as the birthplace of change through the Alexander Technique perspective. When Alexander realized that he was losing his voice every time that he was acting, and he exhausted all the options of going to doctors, what he realized is that he must be playing a part in this reality. So he said, I'm going to investigate. And he actually wrote a book called The Use of the Self, in which he describes in a lot of detail his experiences, kind of going through all the changes of observing himself and noticing what his habits were around acting. Alexander realized that the habits that he had around acting were actually habits that also showed up in other areas of his life. So he started to trick himself into saying, well, now I'm going to act and let's see what happens, versus I'm going to give myself the choice of acting, walking, raising my hand, so that he wouldn't prepare for the moment of acting in the same way. And by preparing, I mean, if you've ever sung or played or given a speech or done something in front of the public, you know that there's a moment of, here I go. And if you don't know how to deal with that moment, if you don't make friends with that moment, then it becomes much harder to keep going without derailing. So what worked for Alexander was to keep on studying and observing and practicing the beginning of acting for him. For me as a musician, this also happens. If I tell myself that I'm going to sing an A vowel and it doesn't come out the way that I want it to for some reason, I don't try to say, there I go again and I did it wrong. What I do is that I try to approach it from a different perspective, meaning I try to notice whether I was feeling my feet on the floor or whether I was exhaling fully. And also, I invite a bigger perspective, because if my goal of singing that note correctly gets so narrow that I forget that I'm lucky to be a musician, excited to give concerts and to teach music, then what's the point of singing a good A vowel if I'm not going to enjoy the process? So you could say that in a nutshell, creating new habits in the Alexander Technique has to do with intercepting the moment between something that you want to do, your goal, and the process of it. So you have all that space in between to focus on the process, and eventually you might get to your goal, or you might even get to a better place that you hadn't defined. Because when our minds are on the process, something miraculous might happen. Alexander realized that willpower didn't really work, because willpower in itself, it's not an integrated response of your whole self. Meaning willpower is just mental. So it's about tuning into the rest of you, physicality, mind, and emotional self, so that you can investigate rather than react right away. There's two places that habits come from. Some are unconscious, so by imitation from our family members, our parents, our genetics, our environment. And those two things we really sometimes don't control, especially if you're a child. And then the second place that habits come from is from a conscious place. And the conscious place comes from clear choices that you've made. We just want to make sure, from the Alexander perspective, that those choices that you've made are integrated into your system. so that they are not only choices that you make mentally or physically or emotionally, but that you are connected to your whole while making them. The choice becomes integrated when you pause and you start to apply what we call inhibition. So inhibition has kind of like a negative connotation from the Freudian meaning of it, but we don't mean it as say no, we mean it as stop and notice. Because if you don't acknowledge the space that there is between a stimulus, something that happens to you, and your response to it, then you're gonna miss the space where you can actually make a choice that you want. We do have a choice, it's just a matter of stopping. This stopping sometimes freaks people out because they think they have to spend a lot of time to stop, but you don't. You can literally, with practice, get this to be, I don't know, for me is like 2 seconds now where I take that time to pause and reconnect, and then I realize, okay, this is what's happening, but I'm gonna choose to breathe, exhale, reconsider, and notice all the possibilities that there are before I actually go ahead and react. In essence, changing our habits stems from considering the how we do something rather than whether we do it or not. So the how, the process, is what you want to pay attention to as you apply it to singing, speaking. If you want to redefine a relationship and if you want to create change, you need to pause. Well, good luck this week. I hope this has helped you create some new ideas around change and habits, and just know that you can do it. Have a great week. Bye.